Good. That is up and running. And because I don't trust my computer's sound settings to remain stable, let's go ahead and double check and make sure that is where it needs to be. It did drop down when it does that. We're Mac, so it's not like I can really do much about that. Shift that with it. Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Storyteller's Corner. I'm your host, Joshua T. Calkins Trubergy, also known as Baron Sidious. In the description below this stream, you will see a link as well as the text and the banner above here. It's two different links, actually. The one above my head you can't click directly on, but that is, if you type it in, will take you to the home front of the Storyteller's Corner on Substack. And I have been, over the course of the last couple of months, I started doing Fan Fiction Friday for the Storyteller's Corner. I've been presenting an older fan fiction story that I wrote several years back. Heavy is the Crown. And I tend to mention this story in reference to video games because it is based on a video game property. It's a fan fiction origin tale regarding Big Boss King Bowser. My personal imagining of what Bowser's origin story might have been. It's a little more along the lines of a kind of high fantasy epic. And as I've been going through and representing it, I've come to recognize that this is not usually the level of effort that most people throw into a fan fiction story, nor is it the sort of style, narratively, that a lot of people end up going for. Boy, howdy, have I learned a little bit more about fan fiction. I've known about it for a long time. I've written a few fan fiction stories. I always assumed that they were kind of homages to the characters and fandoms to which they belong. I've been proven quite wrong in the last few weeks as I have delved over into FF.net and AO3. There's a whole lot of, let's just say, degeneracy that runs rampant in fandoms and fan fiction. I kind of had heard a lot about that, but until recently, I had not wanted to believe it. Now I have no choice but to believe it because I've seen it with my own two eyes. But I'm a bookish sort, so this kind of goes hand in hand with what I do. In terms of book reviews, I haven't done a book breakdown or book review in a while, but I have recently started finally getting around to reading Fred Saberhagen's Book of Swords. I've got the entire first trilogy and the second set's the Forgotten Book of Swords. And I'm going to start going through and taking my notes, my handy dandy notebook, and doing up a breakdown and review of this first entry into the series. Hopefully, in the next couple of months, I'll be able to rip through reading this first book. Thus far, it's quite engaging. There's a lot of kind of indirect ties to mythology that I've already come across just in the first 40 pages of this book. And that's going to be, for me at least, I imagine, quite entertaining, quite enjoyable. On X/Twitter, I follow a lot of bookish sorts of folks. And there's one fellow in particular who is also a book reviewer on YouTube and on his X account. He does quite a bit of bookish chit chat. Let me see if I can pull up. I really should have thought to pull up his name earlier. Jonathan Cohn. At Jonathan Cohn. JONATHAN capital KOAN. At Jonathan Cohn. And he recently did a quick capsulated review of Star Wars Children of the Jedi. I found it interesting to see him review that because that is among the many Star Wars books that his backroom library shelves. It's one of many books that he gave me that I have not yet gotten around to reading. It is Star Wars. It's a book, so I will eventually try to get my way to this as well to see if my impressions or takeaways are similar or the same as his. Not sure. I only just recently started following the fellow. So if we have similar tastes in sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, I'm not entirely sure yet because I haven't done a deep dive into the back catalog of his tweets or posts, or I haven't found him on YouTube just yet. I do have to look him up so I can find someone else who's doing bookish chat. But I have been a busy fellow. If you go to the link that's down below, you're going to find that tiny URL link takes you to a storefront page over on Lulu. I have been transferring or reproducing a lot of my older work onto Lulu. And in the last year, I have been preparing a lot of works to go through the production process. And in recent times, I have been quite busy with it. For starters, there's American Goblin, the story of Crick Solomon, your average everyday American who works a regular job, drives a regular car, pays his bills and his taxes, and he tries to be a decent member of society. He lives and works in Savage, Minnesota. He's not much different than you or I, but unless, of course, you take into account that he is a goblin. What sort of goblin? An American goblin. What that means, you can find out by clicking the link below and ordering your copy today. Or did you just get a brief idea? You can head to the Storyteller's Corner.substack.com and you can find the first 3 chapters of American Goblin free to read and consider prior to making the decision to pull the trigger and purchase your copy. Then there is an unpleasant place that those of you who are familiar with me are familiar with, Amelia City. The Justice of Amelia, also available at the link below. And then we're getting into some more recent material, although this one's not recent, but it's actually it's a new edition of the big tour with new cover art. Daryl Steele has been a metal band roadie for his entire working adult life. The life he leads is one filled with music, mayhem, and that classical, timeless trio of elements that pulls men like him in like a siren song. 8 years, things turn for the tour across the U.S., and its members, Axel, Tim, Billy, and Garrett, reveal themselves to Daryl and the crew to be more than just an aging heavy metal band. They're not called the Horsemen for nothing. They need their loyal roadie chief to help lead the way on one last tour, the big tour. Will Daryl live up to his reputation as a tireless servant of all things metal and help put the world on course to the apocalypse? Or will he fall short and muck up God's plan? Find out in the big tour. Again, you can order this at the link below. And then there's more recently, from the 4th Age of Tamalaria, Not So Epic. The realms of Tamalaria have known many heroes over the long course of their histories. These heroes need weapons and armor to complete their noble, mighty quests and deeds, and they rely on smithies like young Drenget. But Dren's hero isn't actually a heroic or noble fellow. He's a drunken Minotaur freelancer who, it would seem, nearly killed a young warrior who was supposed to fulfill a prophecy and save the world. Now Dren has to help Andre, said Minotaur, salvage at least part of that prophecy and forge a weapon that will stave off a threat from beyond the known realms of their world. Dren would have preferred to live a life that was just that of a simple blacksmith, a life that might be not so epic. Fourth Age of Templarian Tale. Available in this doorstop trade back, also available in ebook edition at the link below. And I say doorstop because this clocks in at 615 pages. The thump. Also from the Age of Temelaria, this morning we have Fodder Squad by yours truly. The saviors of Granick are once more being celebrated for their efforts in saving the small kingdom of Granick from being overrun by Pel Droma, a hobgoblin sorcerer from the Greenskin Nation who had once been bent on conquering the territory and making it his own to rule. Everyone in the township Bronze Pot is eager to celebrate their heroic deeds and the freedom these brave adventurers assured for them. Well, not everyone. There are a few who know that these saviors are not so perfect, and they want nothing more than to let people know just that. This is the tale of that quartet of unlikely folks, the sort of folks who might, in other tales of the fantastical, be considered cannon fodder, a kind of fodder squad. Available at the link below. And most recently, tales of the fantastical not set in the realms of Temelaria. Free spirits. There have always been spirits among us, whether the fey folk of the Emerald Isle, the volatile goblins of the Unseelie Court, or the dreaded skinwalkers of Native American myth. There have been spirits of the strange and supernatural stalking our world. The times of the American Revolutionary War and the years surrounding the colonization and post-war era of America were, one suspects, no different, dear readers. Collected herein, author Joshua T. Calkin's trilogy, yours truly, offers a few tales of oddment set in just that framework for your fantastical delight, or possibly terror. Free spirits, available at the link below. Those are just a few of the bookish things that I have been up to recently and hope to get up to in the near future. There's a lot to be said for this notion that has been very prevalent in kind of pop culture / culture war conversations and dialogue, that there are no more books for boys or books written for men. A big part of this conversation is not well covered or well exposed to folks who are not bookish is the fact that approximately 80 to 83%, I say 83 because I'm giving a little bit of a hint, a nod towards the folks over at Hypnotic. But no, in actuality, it's between 80 to 82% of folks working in the publishing industry, from editors to acquisitions agents to literary agents to proofreaders, typesetters, formatters, marketing and advertising folks. 80 to 82% of the folks working within the publishing industry are women. That's just a fact. So the idea that we should be surprised that a vast majority of material available in the market for genre fiction or any fiction reading of any sort, be it literary, be it romance, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, thrillers, suspense, action-adventure, whatever this genre or subgenre is, one should not be surprised that the vast majority of material seems to be squarely aimed at a female audience of readers, written predominantly by female authors. This does not mean there are no books on the market for boys or men. There are. There's just far fewer of them. They're not going to get as much push or promotion. And particularly if you're in the small press or independent publishing scene, the idea that anyone is going to give you the time of day if you are not aiming your work at the vast majority of the purchasing public, if you're not aiming to get female readers, you're aiming yourself into the ground. What I can say in terms of my own material is that it is not, to the best of my knowledge, aimed specifically at one sex or the other in terms of readership. There is not much romance going on in any of the material that I write, however. And the brothers Crin over on Substack.com, as well as a handful of other folks writing essays regarding the publishing industry and trends in literary and genre fiction, have all observed that a great deal of what passes as pulp public market material these days, especially with the phenomenon of book talk, folks who promote different books on TikTok, the vast majority of the material is referred to colloquially as romantasy or romantic fantasy. My own wife has been reading a lot of this kind of material over the course of the last year. I have tried to read a little bit of it, and most of it is thinly veiled slop and smut. I'm not going to try to sit here and be some grand high poobah moralizer, but most of it is barely literate, barely readable, and doesn't really pass the sniff test for quality. It's loaded with characters who are two-dimensional wooden mokujin at best. And mokujin is just, it means training dummy. It's why the character in Tekken 3 who takes on the skills and abilities and move sets of other characters, his name is Mokujin. It literally means wooden training dummy. But these characters, in a lot of the current run of what's popular and what's selling, especially amongst young adult women readers and authors, most of it is, it's just poorly written trash. And not even all of it's poorly written, it's passable. It's functional. But there's not a whole lot of soul. And many of these stories appear to be, just from the little bit of sampling and couple of chapters that you're allowed to read through either Google Books, they have a preview capacity. Belgian Dan, medicated, lubricated YouTuber. Yes, Dan's got the wooden training dummy. He's got a mokujin. How you doing, Dan? You want your mokujin to be wooden. You want your training dummy to be wooden. You don't want the characters in your fiction, if you're reading for leisure or for analysis, you don't want your characters to be wooden. Well, a lot of the characters in the current run of romantic fantasy that are really popular, they're wooden or barely passable as even wooden. They're stereotypes and flatline archetypes. There's not a whole lot of substance to these characters. There's not a whole lot of substance to the world building mechanics around these stories. I'm doing all right, Dan. Just kind of finding myself a little bit irked by the current trends in publishing. Timing is terrible, though. I'll be right back in a moment. I have to hit the loo. Yeah, Twilight. The fuck. And here's another thing. Fucking from Twilight, we wound up with 50 Shades of Drek because of fucking E.L. James writing a fan fiction piece of garbage. Here's what's really weird. I was growling and grumbling about Twilight and E.L. James and 50 Shades and Stephanie Meyer 12, 13 fucking years ago, all right? Back when I was still living out in New York. Dan can tell you because he's been around since then. He has been growling for a long time about this stuff. And I really believe a lot of it can be laid squarely at the feet of Laurel K. Hamilton and the Anita Blake series of novels. The Anita Blake books, written by Laurel K. Hamilton, the first 3 were really engaging. They were urban fantasy, and by urban fantasy, that means it's high magic, high world building, fantastical creatures are involved, things to do with mythological legendarium like the Seelie Court, the Unseelie Court, the realm of Faerie, also indulging in the introduction of vampires, werewolves, other entities and mythos and legendarium, kind of blending them all together and overlaying them into our current day, our modern world, kind of saying that those things exist and they live parallel to our own reality. You'll find that urban fantasy of this sort is also the realm of Jim Butcher in the Dresden novels. Neil Gaiman with American Gods, that was considered urban fantasy, much the same as his novel Neverwhere. This is what defines urban fantasy, a discovery of witches, that series, again, urban fantasy, because there are fantastical world building elements, creatures, and scenarios and situations couched within real world historical and current day settings. That's the definition, broadly speaking, that most people accept for urban fantasy. Just means it's set in our reality, instead of a separate high yield, high fantasy setting like the Tamilarian Tales, which are set in a whole different other world. If you're interested in finding out about that, you can head to the link down below. Self-promotion sucks, but I gotta do it. Every small press or independent author has to do their own promotion these days. Trust me, because nobody's gonna do it for you. Now, back to the idea that there are no books for men or boys anymore. That is not true. There are works of fiction that you can find to read for leisure or for analysis that are aimed at young men or just men generally speaking. But you're not going to find them on the shelves, for the most part, in the new releases at Barnes & Noble, at Books A Million. Yeah, Dan remembers. Buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my book. Which is a reference to The Critic, which was an old Fox television animated program about Jay Sherman, a movie critic. That show is available for viewing for free on Tubi, because Fox still owns the rights. But many of the works that you're going to find nowadays that are aimed at or are not aimed at specifically, but are more likely to be taken up by male adult readers are works from independent authors and small press authors. You can find a lot of quality material of that sort at Substack. Not only on my own Substack, but on the Substacks of folks like Jolin Hildebrandt, at the Substacks of people like the Brothers Krynn. That's Krynn. Brothers Krynn. And the two of those gentlemen also write a lot of essays about classical literature and culture, and they're just great guys. I cannot recommend them highly enough. You also have some lovely material from Jonathan Delp, who writes an ongoing vignette series known as Stomp Roams, regarding the stories of a traveling Sasquatch who is trying to find his family. He's been traversing most of North America for decades, trying to catch up to his elusive kinsman. It's not just Sasquatch himself, the one we all think of as Bigfoot. He's not the only one of his kind, but all of his kind tend to be very elusive. They don't want to settle into one spot for long enough to be tracked down. And the stories about Stomp are fascinating, and there's a weird kind of, I don't know, adventurous, boyish glee to them. Jonathan Delp is a fantastically talented storyteller who knows how to rope you in with just enough detail, just enough charm, and just enough magic to, in a very short space, tell you a brief snippet of a story of Stomp's adventures that make you want to keep coming back. Now, Jonathan, sadly, he sometimes feels pressured to put out more of these stories. Give the man time. He's only got a handful of these snippets out there, and he's continuously working on them as he can. But the guy has a regular day job, just like me. He's a small press storyteller. He's an indie guy. Give him time. Because what you get in exchange for offering that patience is worth the wait. The same for Jolin Hildebrandt and his Silverbolt stories. Though the story of Silverbolt does have an element of romance story in there. Talks a little bit about this character's love life. But it's not going great for him. So it's a little bit darkly amusing. So Jolin Hildebrandt is another fellow who I would recommend checking out on Substack. If you want material to read, to entertain, to be thoughtful of, to promote contemplation, Substack really is a great place to find it, whether it be fiction or nonfiction. There are a lot of literary pieces that you can read through that will give you a different perspective, a different view on the world around you. And there's plenty of fiction to find on there as well, from Catherine Elaine to the folks I've already mentioned. And there are more folks cropping up every day on Substack who deserve an opportunity to be enjoyed, to engage with. Now, plenty of them have material behind a paywall where they ask for a paid subscription if you're going to be a member of their Substack. For a little while there, I had material behind a paywall as well, because I was tired of feeling like I was just kind of throwing my material against the wall and nobody taking an interest, or deciding if he's going to put it out there for free, it's because he doesn't value his material. So why should we? And then I got a little grumpy and started putting stuff behind a paywall. And I felt mercenary doing that. I don't want to be exceedingly mercenary. because I understand that some people just can't afford a constant, refreshing, ongoing subscription. That's why I do the actual publications, though, and why I'm recommending, if you are so inclined, click the link below to head to the Lulu storefront, because that's where you're going to find these titles at their most affordable price. Yes, many of these works are available on Amazon. So if you've got Prime, you're going to get your free, rapid shipping for tales like Not So Epic or Fodder Squad or Free Spirits. Dropped it. Damn it. There's a fumble. Or The Big Tour, you'll also find on Amazon. The Justice of Amelia, you'll also find on Amazon. But you'll find them at a slightly higher cost. I think you would do better if you head to the link below in the description. And yes, Dan, I will go ahead and do it once again. Buy my book. Buy my book. The lighting on my webcam here is for shit. It's another reason why I'd recommend just head to the link below. You'll actually see the covers for these titles a lot clearer. Not that long ago, there was an attempted boycott of The Beast of Bezos. Guess what? That's not going to work. I understand that particular evil exists and probably will continue to exist for a long time. And yes, I will have titles available for sale through that outlet. But they're also going to continue to be available at that link below on Lulu. That's where you're going to get the most affordable copies of my works. And in the future, over the course of the next couple of years, I will be bringing a lot more of my material exclusively to that storefront. I will not make all of my works available at Amazon. Is that cutting myself off from potential sales? Yeah, it will be. I'm aware of that. Why would I hurt myself in my own earning potential that way? Because it's a small thing that I can do to help improve the overall health of the marketplace and the publishing industry. It's not much, but it's something. And it's something within my reach, within my grasp, to be able to do to improve the health of the narrative space and the art of the written word. I'm just one little guy, but it's something I can do. So why not? There's also the fact that a lot of these works, you can find the first few chapters at thestorytellerscorner.substack.com. You can always find a couple of short stories for free there as well, and the previously mentioned Fanfic Fridays. The reason I'm going to leave those up in their entirety once they're produced and presented is I cannot legally sell fan fiction and profit from it. That is not allowed, because the intellectual property that those stories are based upon does not belong to me. Bowser, as a character, as a concept, belongs to Nintendo. So I cannot profit from the sale of any story that I write about Bowser. So once I finish presenting all the chapters of that story on thestorytellerscorner.substack.com, unlike the Tamalarian Tales, I will not be deleting any chapters from Heavy as the Crown from the fanfiction section on my Substack. The entire thing will remain available, free to read, in perpetuity. Because as we have all learned about Nintendo over the years, They are quite litigious and they don't lose. And I am scared of that kind of skilled lawyer. So, no thank you. Clear that. Okay. Let's take a quick look here. Sorry, folks, just doing some housekeeping really quickly. Okay, yeah. Anyhow, that's pretty much going to do it for me, just about, before I wrap up here. I'm going to take the opportunity to do a couple more references. If you are looking, folks, to watch / listen to somebody who is highlighting newer, up and coming content creators on YouTube and Rumble and elsewhere, I would recommend. Hey, buddy. Hi. I would recommend checking out the YouTube channel Ryan Roger Athe 199. That's reality based. Every Monday he does reality based revival and highlighting new and up and coming YouTubers and content creators who are creators in various arenas, making their own material, being independent voices. I'd also, if you're looking for more kind of culture war, pop culture kind of conversation, recommend Toasty with the Mosty 69. She does a lot of kind of culture war, pop culture conversation topics, video games, that sort of thing, with the assistance of PWG, Problematic White Guy, also known as John. There's also the Kung Fu Hot Dog, who I would recommend. He's an amusing fellow. If you're looking for a chit chat about pop culture, specifically and especially in the video game space, I would give him a hearty recommendation. And there's one last person. Come on, gotta find it. Cult Classic Cage, Cassie over at Cult Classic Cage, who I would also recommend if you are interested in watching some live streams or replays of live streams regarding the video game culture arena and space. I would recommend giving her a watch or follow and subscription as well. That's going to do it for me for today, ladies and gentlemen. This was just going to be a brief stream, kind of updating, talking a little bit about the bookish things that I'm up to myself most recently and in the near future. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I ask, as always, that you take care of yourselves and remember, keep reading.